pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call of council, please. Councilmember Garvin. Here. Councilmember Jones.
Here.
Councilmember Kay.
Here.
Councilmember Olvera. Here. Councilmember Putnam.
Here.
Councilmember Steiger.
Here.
Councilmember Walker.
Here.
Thank you. So are there any additions or changes to tonight's agenda?
Adding a strong
Or a presentation?
number 5.
So seeing no changes, I hear a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Number 5, 1, 2, roll call. Oh, okay, presentation.
All those in favor of the agenda as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving on to audience comments. We'll start with Jean Fancher.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, esteemed audience. Do we have sound? No. Okay.
There you go.
Jean Fancher, 37248 55th Avenue South on the West Hill. I have 2 topics. One is the garbage contract, and the second is the City Hall upgrade. First, on the garbage contracts, I'd like to make a suggestion for a negotiator and also contact the City of Auburn. Federal Way has lower garbage rates than Pacific for combined garbage collection and recycling. In the discussions, I've heard mandatories for recycling and yard waste. I'm not too sure the yard waste is necessarily mandatory. We should reward people for composting, not punish people who are composting because other people don't do the right thing. If you contact Federal Way's Dave Van Orson, he's recommended Jeff Brown at Epicenter Services, who has negotiated with Waste Management, and Mr. Brown saved the city's residents a ton of money by negotiating with Waste Management and motivating them to provide both recycling containers and garbage containers for one fee. I have a copy of an old rate sheet which I'll pass out to council and the secretary. Mr. Brown does charge a fee. He's from Bellingham. His company is Epicenter Services. Mr. Van Ostro is the contracts administrator with Federal Way. You can give him a call. The City of Auburn is also a bi-county city, and Mr. Orso suggested contacting Joe Nelson at the City of Auburn and see how they negotiated garbage contracts for 2 cities. So basically, check with Federal Way in Auburn, consider Jeff Brown, consider putting some pressure on Waste Management, because I particularly don't want to have to pay for yard waste recycling or pay a much larger fee than Federal Way when my neighbors in Federal Way are paying less and getting a free recycle bin included in their rates. My second topic is upgrade of the City Hall. Some of the Pacific's ordinances require us to recycle and to buy green and do all these great things, and I would like to suggest if the City Hall is being remodeled or upgraded or fixed, that rather than depending on an old boiler system and using electricity-based air conditioning, that the city look into heat pumps and heat pumps that are ground-based rather than air-based. The city is sitting basically on a lake of groundwater that's about 55 degrees, and pipes laid down in that groundwater can provide lots of heat through the heat exchanger. So I would just consult with your architects, look into green design, and especially a LEED silver or platinum rating. It will save the city money in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have Mark On.
this is the place to be on a Monday night. It's so nice and cool. Thank you. Last Wednesday night, my congregation canceled our regular midweek worship to make possible participation in that critical conversation about the parts of recreational pot businesses would be allowed in our community. I attended the public hearing of the Planning Commission, and that meeting made the point quite clear why the city is not ready to deal with the reality of the recreational pot business. If you've not seen the video of that meeting, I encourage you to do so. It makes it quite clear. Why am I telling you this? Because I'm very frustrated at the lack of legitimate process and discussion of the matter. I was among a small group who stayed after the public comment portion to listen to the process of the commission, thinking that there would be discussion and conversation and evaluation of merits and ideas. You need to know the information you get back from the commission does not reflect a legitimate public process or any open discussion by those commission members. When you receive the resolution they'll be returning to you, recognize that those resolutions they return receive no discussion as to merits, values, appropriateness for the current situation of this city, or any other points relevant of discussion. All presentations made by the public, both in favor of and against the recreational marijuana business, were reduced to hash marks on a scrap of paper in front of the chairman. That's all it was. Nothing we said had any value except for or against. And by the way, the score was 8 for a ban, 6 for permitting recreational pot business, though the discussions, while saying they wanted to heed public sentiment, favored wide open pot market in the Pacific, a choice that seemed to me foreordained from the beginning. Related, I think, I trust that you're aware of a segment that was on KOW host Ross Reynolds last Friday when he talked with, and this is quoting from KOW's piece, with Mr. James Dusick, owner of Downtown Cannabis Company in Pacific Washington. He and 2 other marijuana businesses have sued the city of Fife over its ban on marijuana businesses, worrying that the ban could spread to other areas. The case has been taken up by the ACLU. I provide a link for you. Among the quotes from Mr. Dusick that I found very interesting was one in which he said that he hoped to pressure the city of Pacific or bring them on board. In order that the Fife lawsuit is successful, then all of I-502 businesses will be unable to proceed. I struggle with a business that comes in saying, you do it my way or I'll sue the pants off of you. This is a still rapidly unfolding area with many details without any answers yet. That's why many of us are saying, we are not ready. Wait, let others go first. Learn from the hard lessons that others will go through. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Are there any more comments to be brought forward at this meeting? Any more public comments? All right, and then we'll be moving on. Next up, we have a presentation from Laura Moses from Waste Management. Welcome.
So let me introduce, this is Will Ivershaw. This is Will Ivershaw. He works for Waste Management also. He's one of my partners in crime. So he's here to help answer any questions that you may have after our presentation. So thank you for allowing me to be here, and good evening to all of you. I am here to provide a presentation of an update on the status of conversations that have taken place with your solid waste ad hoc committee. And to date, I think that we've made progress, significant progress, and I want to thank Councilmember Vic Cave and Clint Sager for their work through many issues. We've had a lot of conversations, and I'd like to try to summarize some of that and outline a potential path to move forward. Excuse me. First, the discussion has been to move from a subscription service to one in which all the services are included into one rate. Right now, the residents do pay separately for your garbage, for your recycling, and for your yard waste. And we've discussed a system where the garbage, recycling, and yard waste would all come under one rate. And we've talked about having just garbage and recycling and leaving yard waste as subscription service. So we have gone through a lot of scenarios. We've also discussed increasing your current recycling cart sizes from 64 gallons to 96 gallons. If you go to the embedded recycling program, it increases the capacity to recycle by 32 gallons from where it exists today. Second, we've talked about moving to a system where everybody gets a garbage cart and we would no longer pick up individual cans. This allows for automated collection and it gives residents the chance to choose the size of cart and how much they would like to pay. These wheeled carts are much easier for customers to get to the curb. They're waste management owned, we maintain them. If something breaks, they need something new, we replace it. Your residents aren't digging into their pocket to do that. There's lids attached to those carts, so on windy days you don't have lids blowing around. It really makes for a much nicer look to the community on collection day. Third, we've talked about adding a recycling education program for residents and businesses. It really expands the opportunity to educate on any kind of new recycle programs we do, and going out to all your commercial businesses and letting them know that recycling is available and helping them get to that place to downsize their garbage. We have also talked about a special collection event at the City Hall in conjunction with the spring cleanup. So we would stage an event here during the week of that collection, and we may collect items that are hard to recycle right now, like styrofoam or maybe used cooking oil. And we could have those conversations with you about, kind of what's going on and what do you think you want to do. And that could change from year to year, but that would become part of the spring cleanup. Fifth, we've talked about adding Christmas tree recycling to the entire community. That sometimes you have a problem with, people kind of chucking those things off the side of the road or into the urban trail, and so we've discussed that. And then we've also discussed multifamily and bringing in a cart-based recycle program for all your multifamily residents. So we've also talked about taking over the service in the Pierce County portion of the city and to deliver that waste to the King County Transfer Station. We will build our contract on that premise. However, the city has to determine the legal authority to do both of those. We've had a lot of extensive conversations about that also. The city is also working through issues related to franchise fees, utility tax. We will collect and remit to the city whatever the proper amounts are, just as we do today in the King County portion. The amount of the fee and the utility tax is obviously up to the city and will be included in the rate. And we have done a bunch of scenarios with numbers. If the fee goes up or down, we adjust accordingly. So as a path to move forward, I would suggest the following to allow us to negotiate the details of a new contract. First, the City Council has to agree with the concept of adding the embedded service to all residential customers, along with the other customer enhancements that we've discussed. The city commits to waste management, providing the service in the Pierce County portion of the city, and that waste is delivered to the King County Transfer Station. That we enter into good faith negotiations to produce a contract and a rate schedule that is adopted before January 1st, 2015, and that would give us time to implement a new contract rolling out all new services by July 1st of 2015. And that the current contract be extended until June 30th of 2015 so that we can enter into negotiating all the contract details, getting the rate schedule, and then having the time to order equipment, devise all the brochures, literature, outreach, etc. The six-month transition allows us to do that. There's a possibility that we can negotiate a draft contract sooner than that, but we still need that 6-month time period once the contract is approved by council in order to implement any new services. So we're committed to working on that draft contract with you, and like I said, we've had a lot of really great conversations around different services and what would be important to the community. So I think right now I'm open to any questions you might have. I'll do my best to answer them.
Okay. questions from council?
I know in the past Auburn has done a spring cleanup curbside, and you could put a refrigerator out there, almost anything. Is that something the city sets up with people, or is that something you generously give?
Everything has a cost, right? The city of Auburn currently handles all their own garbage billing, and similar to what City Pacific did a couple of years ago prior to us taking over the billing for the city. And part of what we do is build in the service portion of it, so the actual collection at the curb. But the city does in fact pay for all the disposal of those materials collected. And over time, the city has kind of reevaluated that program and streamlined the list of materials that they'll collect at the curb. Because it used to be, once upon a time, you could put anything you wanted to out there, and the city would pay for it. So they've really tried to get it away from being just straight garbage to really being bulky items. So that refrigerator, that stove, that table, or whatever you have. And oftentimes we find that we have persons coming down the street prior to the actual day that we come by to collect, kind of picking stuff out. So yeah, the city pays for the disposal piece of that, and we built into our rate structure the collection piece of it.
And it's nice to put it
It is nice, yeah. And so, I mean, I know right now we do, in Pacific, we have a spring cleanup, and it's pretty much, you can put, I believe it's up to 5 bags of garbage out, or the equivalent of 5 32-gallon cans. So
Is that new or part of the proposal?
we do that in the spring. We do that in the spring right now.
Every spring.
That's missed out on it.
And so we were proposing, in addition to that, to add kind of some of those other funky items, and that may change from year to year, if it's styrofoam or wood or whatever it might be, in order to try to, help people clean out stuff that's piled up in their property.
Not a question or comment. One of the other things we discussed is, since the city got away from billing, we had people drop off their garbage collection, and garbage is piling up in those residences. And since we have mandatory garbage collection, they drop off, and I can notify them that they're going now, it's really on 8/10, so that you can follow up whenever someone drops off, so they will pay. Waste management can't keep picking up and not collecting their monthly fees, so they drop them off of theirs, and then it's up to us to enforce getting back on the system. So now there's communication there to have that happen.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time, trying to figure that one out, balancing it, and that transition from, the billing, when you folks were billing to our billing, and how that all comes together. So yes, working with Ken on identifying all those addresses, and then Ashley found some addresses when we took the King County parcel data and combined it with our data in our system to come up with what we call suspect addresses. But we didn't know if they were empty lots, vacant homes, and so I know Ken is working on trying to kind of get us some information back on that too. And so we're hoping to come up with a master plan and then reach out to those folks that should have garbage service but don't today.
So I guess part of my thoughts are, it sounds like you're presenting a lot of things that the committee has been talking about, and I appreciate that. I'm not sure that a lot of the other council has weighed in on what the direction, what they want that package to look like. So what I'm hoping you can provide is some of this information, so that maybe we can get it on the next workshop agenda, so that there can be a full council discussion.
Absolutely.
And some direction on where we want to proceed, so then we can maybe get it to the finance committee to get some cost associations with this before we move forward on setting up this contract.
Yeah, that's kind of where we would like to go to, because I know, Vic and Clint have done a lot of hard work in kind of getting us to this point.
Right.
And like I said, a lot of great conversation. And so really the next step is to get agreement from everybody about what it is you want for your community and what that looks like. And we can come because that, kind of what that looks like services then creates the contract that we need to have to support it
Right.
with the rate schedule. So it kind of has to go in that order, and before the other pieces will happen.
Right. And I think we need feedback from all the councils of what we want on the service on the site. Councilmember Sykes.
What we were thinking myself was doing was trying to limit and get down to some real brass tack scenarios. And then, rather than get the whole council involved, everything, and all the groundwork, and everything else, do a lot of that, and then when we have some choices, bring that information to the council, let the council know what we have discussed, what our recommendations might be. These are the other possibilities we can have, and that's where we were headed. But at this point right now, we have a lot of problems because of waste management, trying to get their personnel together and get communication and all, everything else. We have not been able to secure any real scenarios to even bring in, but just conversation is all we've had. So now we're looking at them requiring an extension so we can continue on, if the council wishes us to continue on and get these, get it down to 3 or 4 different comparisons. We do, not the council wants to take it all over, the council take it all over. I don't really care. I'm just,
Sure, and I'm not suggesting that council take it all over. I'm suggesting they have a workshop where council has the opportunity to weigh in on their thoughts of what the services look like or what they want to do. And it sounds like that they've done a lot of work
Oh, yeah.
to weigh in some options. And I think now is a good time based on some of the things that have been weighed out, and at the council and kind of, give some direction to council on how to proceed and what we want to look like. Yeah. Councilmember Kay.
Yeah, just more comment. That's all fine and dandy, but the whole purpose of the council committees was for us to do some work. And right now, we're waiting for numbers. We've got proposals, but we don't have numbers. Until we get numbers, they're not worth anything to bring to council. So we're doing our job, and we just need the time to finish it. And if there's a problem with the way we're conducting business as a committee, then I'd say there's a problem with the way we conduct business in all of our committees, because it's, what I'm hearing the mayor say is that we're not moving fast enough, or we're not providing options, well, because we're not ready, and that happens a lot at council committees. I haven't been here very long, but I've already seen it happen a lot in a lot of the committees that I'm on.
So, if you could provide that information, if you could get that to Amy, so that we'll be able to get it on the workshop for Monday for the council to have some discussion and then send it back to the committee where all the council has weighed in on what that is.
So
Point of
you-
order, we're a committee, and if we can't run this through committee, it's our job as a committee to bring this to you. And you're circumventing us by asking her to bring this to you, Mayor, and that's not right.
So, you weren't here at the workshop, and my question was, where were you getting direction? No, council had not been asked what they wanted to see in this, and then to give guidance on how to negotiate this contract or what to be looking at. All I want to do is give council the opportunity to weigh in on what they want the garbage service to look like for the city of Pacific, so you can continue on with the work that you are doing.
I thought we discussed that we were in conversation with waste management. If anybody had any ideas to send them to us, just like you do with any other community. It's like public safety. If we've got a concern with public safety, send us a topic to look at a public safety meeting. If you got an issue with budget or finance, send it to the finance committee and we'll discuss the finance. I believe I asked if anybody had anything special they wanted to see in the contract, forward us the information, and we'll look at it and take it into consideration as we negotiate this contract. And that hasn't happened.
So is it council's pleasure to have this on next week's workshop for discussion for council to sit on that?
I don't see the harm in it.
Everybody saying what's been discussed so far. Councilmember Jones. I'm not trying to push you. Councilmember Jones.
I understand, and I
concur with the committee that, based on the information that's received, we just received from Waste Management and the presentation, the committee and Waste Management right now is not ready for us as a council to weigh in on what options. I have no problem with just having a discussion about it, don't get me wrong, but the committee itself hasn't worked enough out of the bugs and issues to give us scenarios that we need to make a decision on. It doesn't mean that we can't have a conversation, like Councilmember Kay has suggested that, so far that we haven't communicated with that committee with some of the ideas. Some of the things I heard last week was some of the first time ideas that I've heard come across. I have some concerns, and I'll be interested in voicing my opinion to the committee or in workshop next week. But I think he's right, in my opinion, that the committee needs to have the time to transition with Waste Management, bring the council some scenarios with some depth and, financial costs and what this entails, A, B, C, take from one of the three, or mix up a little bit more. But I do also hear, though, from Waste Management and the committee that we really need to concentrate on the fact that we probably need an extension, because we're running out at the end of the contract. That's one of the concerns the mayor has had. And we need to have, just really, at this point, I think, one, look at that extension, get that in agreement, continue with the committee and with Waste Management, come up and provide viable options that we as a council and the city can take into consideration. So, that's my 2 cents.
Councilmember Garber.
Do you have minutes from your meetings that you've held thus far? You don't keep minutes? You have no?
Yeah, everything's conceptual right now. Until we get numbers to go with the ideas.
Well, my curiosity is just to find out what have been the topics of discussion? What have you discussed thus far?
Exactly what she said.
That's totally
The
it.
services that we currently get,
Right.
the proposals for services that they would provide us, and what we're trying to narrow down is the cost for those services and those different options. Because anything you want tied into the system, like Christmas tree collection, there's going to be a cost associated with it.
And not everybody has Christmas trees.
Exactly. So we need to know, even if it's included as part of the yard waste cleanup, if we embed that, that would be an option that they would throw in, and that's what we want to do, is we want to look at the different options available. If we embed certain services versus have a subscription for every service that we have now, which right now we're probably paying the highest rates of any of the cities around us, and we're looking at embedding some of these services, educating our citizens to reduce the size of their garbage cans, which will save them money in the long run, because only half our city, with less than 60% of our city recycles. And if we embed that service, and it doesn't cost any more to do it, then why wouldn't we do that?
So are you basically saying you're at ground zero at your meetings, or just a little bit better than ground zero? You're just laying everything out? As
Well,
far
we're a
as,
little bit beyond that. Right now, we're at the point where they're ready to give us a draft contract with 3 or 4 different scenarios.
but you don't have any.
Okay, so Vanessa said, okay. I want to bring it, that's the whole point of bringing it to Councilmember Fenton.
I would also suggest that our workshop discussion specifically address a contract extension so that we can get that ratified by council in time for it to Alice.
I would agree with that.
I would say that's pretty neat to know right now. Then the rest of the pieces of the puzzle start to fall through very quickly. Start dating again.
Councilmember Walker.
Two things. If we can add to the agenda, part of Gene's comment as well, something in negotiators and the product and public comment, and our rules of procedure say that we refer to committee or refer to staff or discuss it in a future meeting. So, the other thing is, Laura, if you can repeat the things that you need from us, I think there was 5 or 6 things you need from us going forward, or to move forward.
To move forward? Well, for us, in order to come back, with a contract and rates, we need to understand what the services are that you want. And we've had a lot of conversation about those services, so I guess in order to, you know, figure that out, whether it comes forth from the committee and discussion in a workshop, however you need to do that, we need to know that moving forward, what the services are that you would be interested in doing. Then we can come up with the fee, the rate schedule for you, and the draft contract surrounding all those services and how they're performed. And, I mean, it gets into all the detail of the hours of collection and, you know, the public education and all of those bits and pieces that go into putting the contract together. But it really starts with understanding what you want, you know, as a council for the community. So, and we've had a lot of those conversations already, so.
And we've had input from staff. But is the committee prepared to provide all that, educated based on what the council wants? That's my question. Because if you're not, council doesn't have a list of things that says, these are all the services that are offered, these are the kind of combinations that are available. So until council sees those things and says, even providing input back to the committee so you can move forward, then you need to have this discussion and not now. Because we're just talking now.
Correct.
That's what I'm trying to point out. We don't have anything.
That's all that will happen at workshop next week too, is we'll just talk, and we'll be talking in circles, because we won't have anything.
But she'll be providing a list of services that are available. We'll need to be educated rambling versus the rambling that's just happening now.
If I may, we could actually present like the last option that we discussed. If you want to, you know, bring that forward for conversation, we could sure do that, because I think that's really, that captures everything that we've talked about back and forth, and, you know, I'd be happy to put that in outline draft and bring it so that
That would be
we
fine,
could
but
answer
our
questions.
main priority needs to be the contract.
Sure, yeah, oh, absolutely. And the extension, I can get the extension really quickly. I mean, that's pretty standard language. It's just shooting for that date. You know, if it's July 1st, you know, if we think we can get to the point where we can agree and pass the contract in a rate schedule by January 1st, that gives us the time to do the transition with all the new services that you select.
And one of the things council needs to understand, and the reason there would be a delay in accepting a contract and then not having the services available until a later date is because Waste Management isn't going to spend the capital it takes to improve the system that we might be asking for in the contract until the contract's been signed and they know that they're going to receive money from it. So they can't, on wishful thinking, believe, okay, we'll ramp up and get ready for you, and as soon as the contract is in effect January 1, we'll deliver all those carts, because there's cost to that that they're not willing to put out of pocket until they know they've got a deal in place, and that's why they need to delay.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Thank you so much for coming this evening.
Okay, thank you. And just so I understand, you do want me to put something together for workshop?
Yes.
Okay,
If you could,
okay.
please, and if you could get it to Amy, our deadline would be Wednesday.
Wednesday? Okay. I will make sure it happens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
By the way, I didn't know you were on the agenda.
Moving on the agenda, next item on the agenda is the mayor's report. I have a